Hello, this is CF Charts. Today I'm going to be talking about the family tree of Greek monarchs. Starting with the Wittelsbach dynasty, when they were replaced with the Glucksburgs, up until the abolishment of the Greek monarchy in 1973. We have over 140 years of history to talk about, so let's get to it. In September 1828, the Conference of Poros opened to discuss what should be the borders of Greece. On December 21, 1828, the ambassadors of Britain, Russia, and France met on the island of Poros and prepared a protocol, which provided for the creation of an autonomous state ruled by a monarch, whose authority should be confirmed by a firman of the Sultan. The proposed borderline ran from Arta to Volos, and, despite Capodistria's efforts, the new state would include only the islands of the Cyclades, the Sporades, Samos, and maybe Crete. The Sublime Porte, which had rejected the call for an armistice in 1827, now rejected the conclusions of the Poros Conference, with the Sultan Mahmud II saying he would never grant Greece independence, and the war would go on until he reconquered all of Greece. Based on the Protocol of Poros, the London Conference agreed on the Protocol of March 22, 1829, which accepted most of the ambassadors' proposals but drew the borders farther south than the initial proposal and did not include Samos and Crete in the new state. Under pressure from Russia, the Porte finally agreed on the terms of the Treaty of London of July 6, 1827 and of the Protocol of March 22, 1829. Soon afterward, Britain and France conceived the idea of an independent Greek state, trying to limit the influence of Russia on the new state. Russia disliked the idea but could not reject it, and consequently the three powers finally agreed to create an independent Greek state under their joint protection, concluding the Protocols of February 3, 1830. One of the protocols originally offered the throne to Leopold of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, who would eventually become the first king of the Belgians. However, he refused the title. Negotiations temporarily stalled after Capodistrias was assassinated in 1831, however in the end they chose Otto of Bavaria, a younger son of King Ludwig I of Bavaria. Otto, or Othon in Greek, ascended the newly created throne of Greece at age 17. His government was initially run by a three-man regency council made up of Bavarian court officials. Upon reaching his majority, Otto removed the regents when they proved unpopular with the people, and he ruled as an absolute monarch. Eventually, his subjects' demands for a constitution proved overwhelming, and in the face of an armed, but bloodless, insurrection, Otto granted a constitution in 1843. Throughout his reign, Otto was unable to resolve Greece's poverty and prevent economic meddling from outside. Combined with his wife Amalia of Oldenburg's failure to produce an heir to the throne, King Othon was deposed in October 1862, Otto was deposed while in the countryside. He died in exile in Bavaria in 1867. Upon Otto's deposition, the assembly had to find another person to take the throne. The Greek people still wanted a monarchy rather than a republic though, so they offered Prince Alfred, second son of Queen Victoria. However, she rejected the offer. Eventually, the Greeks and great powers winnowed their choice to Prince William of Denmark, who had received 6 votes in the plebiscite. Aged only 17, he was elected king on March 30, 1863 by the Greek National Assembly under the regnal name of George I, Georgios I in Greek. He was proclaimed King of the Hellenes, instead of King of Greece, which had been Otto's style. George I was the longest reigning monarch of modern Greek history. Under his reign, the Greek territory greatly expanded, with Greece being able to maintain control of Crete for the first time in centuries. However, all good things must come to an end, as on March 18, 1913, George I was assassinated in Thessaloniki by an alleged Greek anarchist named Alexandros Shinas. After this incident, his son Constantine, then aged 44, ascended the throne as Constantine I, Konstantinos I in Greek. His first reign was mostly remembered for conflicts with Constantine I and his prime minister Eleftherios Venizelos over whether Greece should enter World War I. This led to the national schism. The country was basically divided between the pro-Venizelos north and the pro-royalist south. He was forced to abdicate the throne in 1917. The king's second-born son Alexander, Alexandros in Greek, became king in his place. He controversially married the commoner Aspasia Manos in 1919. However, while his wife was pregnant, Alexander was bitten by a domestic Barbary macaque and died aged 27 of sepsis. The sudden death of the sovereign led to questions over the monarchy's survival and contributed to the fall of the Venizelist regime. After a general election and a referendum, Constantine I was restored to the throne. However, he was forced to abdicate again in 1922, when Greece lost the Greco-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922, and this time was succeeded by his eldest son, George II. Constantine died on January 11, 1923 in exile in Sicily, Italy, from heart failure and brain hemorrhage. George II, Georgios II, ascended the throne aged 32, but a year later he had to be exiled to Romania, after a failed royalist coup. Greece was officially a republic by 1924 and soon after was stripped of Greek nationality. However, after the failed attempt at a republic, in 1935, after a rigged referendum, George II was restored to power. Under his second reign government and politics were largely run by Ioannis Metaxas, who the following year staged a self-coup, to which the king supported. Greece was overrun following a German invasion in April 1941, forcing George into his third exile. He left for Crete and then Egypt before settling in London, where he headed the Greek government in exile. At the end of the war, George returned to Greece after a 1946 referendum had preserved the monarchy. However, the following year, he died aged 56. And this is at this point in which George II's younger brother, Paul, Pavlos in Greek, became king of the Hellenes. From the end of his brother's reign, the Greek civil war broke out, communists fighting on one side and the royalists fighting on the other. Paul soon contracted typhoid fever, which limited his role in the civil war. In the end, the royalists won the war in 1949, and Paul continued to be king for another 15 years, until dying of cancer in 1964. After this, his only son Constantine II, Constantinos II, became king. He would be the final king of the Hellenes. Due to his youth, Constantine was also perceived as a promise of change. Greece was still feeling the effects of the civil war and society was strongly polarized between the royalist conservative right wing and the liberal socialist left wing. The accession of Constantine came shortly after the election of centrist George Papandreou as prime minister in February 1964, which ended 11 years of right-wing rule by the National Radical Union (ERE). The Greek society hoped that the new king and the new prime minister would be able to overcome past dissensions. However, a military junta led by Georgios Papadopoulos was established. On December 13, 1967, Constantine was forced to flee the country, following an unsuccessful counter-coup against the junta. Constantine formally remained Greece's head of state in exile until the junta abolished the monarchy in June 1973, a decision ratified via a referendum in July, which was contested by Constantine. After the restoration of democracy a year later, another referendum was called for December 1974. The referendum confirmed by a majority of almost 70% the abolition of the monarchy in the establishment of the Third Hellenic Republic, ending the Greek monarchy for good, and Greece has been a republic ever since. Constantine continued to live in exile until 2013, when he moved to Athens, where he stayed until he died in January of 2023. His son Pavlos, the last crown prince of Greece, is the current head of the house. He delivered Constantine's eulogy during the funeral ceremony and carried his coffin with his brothers, sons and nephews at the burial. On January 22, 40 days following his father's death, Pavlos spoke to French magazine Point de Vue regarding his new role. In the interview, Pavlos thanked the public for their respect towards the Greek royal family and said that those who crowded the funeral, whether they were monarchists or not, paid tribute to a historical personality, a part of Greek history. Pavlos' eldest son, Constantine Alexios, is the heir to the defunct throne. He, interestingly enough, paints and sculpts, often inspired by Greek mythology. He has more than 100,000 followers on Instagram. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Okay, so that was a look at the modern monarchs of Greece. But before I go, I want to show you the connection between the British royal family and the Greek royal family. Remember King George I? Well, he had 5 legitimate sons, the 4th one was named Andrew. He had only one son, named Philip, who was married to none other than Queen Elizabeth II. Their eldest son, Charles, is the current king of the United Kingdom. And that was a look at the family tree of Greek monarchs. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel to be notified about future uploads here on the channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more.